Good morning and welcome to the CADclass podcast.
One more time, Josh. One more time. We only do this every single week for a year.
I don't know why my words. Good morning and welcome to the CADclass podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jake, and I can
we're-
say the title of the show correctly. That's my little that's my little showy offy. That's my bar trick. I can pronounce.
Yeah, you would think
the
after
name of my own
episode
show.
55 straight, well, not quite straight,
Yeah.
but 55 of these, you'd think I'd be able to talk, but
Yeah.
I guess doing
Maybe.
the podcast doesn't improve talking ability or something like that. Good morning, Dairy Air. Good morning, PC Van Vliet, Ogre, Johnny Yurtafan, Dan. It is really lovely to have you all here. Jake, some people making some cool stuff. Some people making some cool stuff.
I would like to start off this podcast, something that you don't know about, with a Jake rant, because we haven't done it in a little while. Okay. So as we've been filming all of our course, and I've been going through the new edition of the book, refilming all the courses, getting through them, just because it's all about additional information that doesn't really make sense in the scope of a book, and stuff that I genuinely don't know that I can add into. So I can do a little bit of research behind all the projects and the engineering and the manufacturing and all of that stuff that I really enjoy. I will often come across small bits of information that I'm surprised that I don't know, that are very, very simple. And then I have to research it. And I'm like, oh, that actually is genuinely fascinating. And then I get to put it in the video. And that's always really fun. And I just came across something that just very much angered me. And I want to talk about it. So we just did the drone video not long ago. And we all talk about, okay, well, this is a kind of mixture. It's a good assembly. It's a mixture between internal components being the frame that you make inside the file, but you also import a bunch of files which are saved outside of the project in the folder. So you bring it in, so it is an external component. All the data is outside, you bring it in. So it's an assembly of two different types. Awesome. These files, these are step files. Josh, do you know what a step file stands for? What step stands for?
Wow.
I know. I had to think about it. Okay. I am so annoyed. It doesn't stand for 4 words that make up the acronym STEP or even STP, because it can be a dot step or a dot STP. Both of those are correct. It stands for the Standard of the Exchange of Product Data. What are we doing? Why isn't it an SEPD file, a SEPD? like we got around calling it like a JPEG. Like it just kind of, this random vernacular of letters just it just came into the lexicon of the world, and we just call it a JPEG now, or a GIF. Like it all, but SEPD? Why? Who in their right name? Who in their right mind would call this a step file? That absolutely, that really pissed me off when I was learning that. I was so pissed off.
You're like, what is the purpose of convention? You
What
can't
is
mash together 2 words into 1 letter, or right?
So annoyed. Like sometimes there's some acronyms that are just very obviously forced, and we all kind of hate them. And then there's some words that are like, oh, I didn't know they were. I didn't know they were an acronym, like scuba or laser. It's like, oh, that's actually kind of rad. But
Yeah.
oh my god, but that pissed me off so much.
Speaking of
over.
the end of rant, by the way, am I cutting this
rant.
rant off? Okay, end of rant. So speaking of the drone project, I now have 90% of the components I need to make my drone work. And I'm trying to find some lithium-ion batteries that I have that still work and aren't completely dead. But this is beside the point. So what's coming for you all, so why this is interesting for you, is we always design that project to be made. And I've been going back and forth with Derry, who's on here, or at least he was when the podcast started, for what exactly I need to purchase to make this drone work so that I can make one in real life. And spoiler alert, I'm also going to make a frame, or maybe Jake will make a frame out of something like carbon fiber from an upcoming partnership that we hope to have not taken so long that it goes away.
In the past. We don't need to be all
No, but that we hope that we still have it because it's taken us
Oh, yeah.
a little longer than anticipated, as it typically does.
Yeah.
But long story short, I will be adding all of the information about what I purchased and how to build this into a 1 2 pager in the drone project inside of
Mhm.
the Google Drive. So as
Yes.
I do that, the hope is that I wanna see you guys make your drones. And full disclosure, I did buy the goggles and the rest of let's say the goggles and the battery chargers and kind of all the peripherals that go around it. And it's looking like it's gonna be somewhere between 350 and 450. So not super cheap, but
Mhm.
in terms of a working drone that has a camera that you can put some goggles on and actually go and take some videography and photography
Mhm.
with, it's a good starter. So coming down
And
the line to be continued there.
of what I've seen from Dare, I mean, this is Dary's design, Dary's catalog recommendations of all the parts that go together, which is 90% of the hard work. If you're working on a big project and somebody more experienced says, "Get this, and this," it'll all go together. That's oh my god, that's the biggest headache on the planet. But it's all parts to make a pretty fantastic drone that goes pretty fast that it would be strong enough to put a GoPro on it. So you could use it for cinematic. It's certainly fast enough to be, amazing to drive around. It's not going to be slow or too heavy. It could pick up a pretty small amount of weight, but it could still carry something fairly interesting. So I'm just so excited for it. That's going to be a
Same.
blast.
I actually so I the funny thing is when I ordered the drone, so I got really excited when we made the drone project. And then when I was ordering the drone components, for some reason I really wasn't excited. I was like, I'm gonna order these. I'm gonna make it. I just didn't have that pizzazz that you sometimes get with
Yeah,
projects.
the
And
fizz.
then the goggles came, and then the I had the drone itself that was there, and then the charger came, and then the radio controller came, and I could feel my excitement just go do 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 do. Wait a second, This is stuff of the future. I'm gonna have a. So I'm actually now I'm at basically peak excitement, and I'm a little disappointed because there's a couple of adapters that I had to pick up because
Mm,
I'm an amateur, and I'm getting questions in the chat, by the way, saying, "Can you fly tethered?" I don't even know what that means. I'm I you know, I gotta I'm a complete and ridiculous amateur here. I've never touched a drone in my entire life.
I've
So,
never
I
flown one
can't
either.
answer any drone questions you have. Derry can.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm seeing also that, I highly recommend a drone simulator like Velocid Velocidrone.
Velocidrone.
Yeah,
That's
okay, okay, perfect. I'm definitely going to do a drone simulator. I would prefer not to crash this thing immediately,
what?
which I will certainly do. By the way, the controller, I don't have it handy right here. The controller's outrageous. It's
Yeah. Does
like
it have like a million buttons on it?
I'm gonna at some point I'll go ahead and grab it. It's not it's got all kinds of stuff. I'm like, this is interesting. I don't know what this stuff is. So, anyways, long story short, I will figure this stuff out. Good news is for the people in our community that are brand new to drones and brand new to CAD, fear not. Your trusty guide over here is also new to the drone side of it. And I will be learning alongside of you and hopefully understanding quite a bit of this as we go. And Jake, um, we had a hypothesis that we should build this ourselves from scratch so that other people knew how to do it. And also
Mhm.
so that we had that fundamental knowledge about the other peripheral stuff that you need to buy. And that's turned out to be true. So by going through this process and building one from scratch, I now feel confident in what I both know and don't know. So any help from you all is also
Oh,
highly
good.
encouraged and recommended. So thank you for the chat comments about not crashing the drone by
You
flying
will crash a
simulator.
drone. I think every single person that flies a drone has crashed it, and it's okay because you can
Yeah.
always rebuild it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of the fun of it.
Yeah. And
The
TC,
problem is when you build a 200-mile-an-hour drone and it
right.
crashes, and then it just turns into dust, and then it's like, oh no, that's less fun. Okay.
Totally.
Um,
Yep.
I think we should show off some projects over the week. We had actually a bunch of new people coming in, and so we got
We did.
some challenges coming down the line uh, from the earlier chapters. I'm not going to say simple because it's all relative, but I want to show off some people's projects. You can ignore mine up there. We're going to go over that in a little bit. But Connie, I saw this, didn't know what it was, and I wanted to be surprised until today. To create this lamp, I took another look at my original. The idea was to change the panels and redesign the lamp. God, this is so rad. This is so cool. I love these little transparent lamps as well.
I do too.
These are just so awesome. God, that's so rad. I will talk about how I made this very, very, very large geocache in a little bit. This was not a pain in the ass, but definitely a brainer. I'm gonna call it that. It was a brainer.
Brainer.
A brainer. But we did have a bunch of people working on the challenge from last week. So I did it very, very roughly in 6 steps, but we got a bunch of people that did it in 5 steps. ZDP doing it in Tinkercad, as always, very, very impressive. Doing it in 5 steps, Grandpa makes not bad. I do want to see the steps of you guys actually doing it because that'd be awesome. Yeah, and then Connie did it in 5 steps. Super duper impressive. I'm not 100% sure how you guys did it, but kudos, amazing, awesome. Yeah, those are absolutely fantastic. And then we have some Yud Hayek, no idea. But making all the chapter 1 challenges, just fantastic.
Well, and then there's a new one. You might notice that this cat thing looks a little bit new, right? And then also the banana. You're like, what's going on here? So Jake,
go on.
So this is from. So Jake and I are now contracted with Autodesk to provide Fusion Fundamentals trainings for educators. And what we realized,
is this from one of our students?
This is from
that's awesome.
A professor in Poland. He's actually pretty good at CAD, but he's new. I believe he's new to Autodesk Fusion. I could be wrong about that. I may have just butchered all of that. It's a possibility. So if he's watching, apologies if I butchered all of that. But so he's going through the fundamentals course right now, and we are rethinking how we go about training educators and basically taking it a little bit slower, going through the user interface stuff, and trying to help people get to understanding the basics and the fundamentals of CAD, both during these sessions and then rolling it out in their classes. So we do have another book coming out, again, specifically designed for teaching and educating, but probably still pretty useful. And it's going to be Fusion Fundamentals, designed to help us run these training sessions. And I actually think some of you all will get a decent bit of value from it as well, even though you've been doing this for some time. There's all kinds of little things that happen that I still notice. Jake, I have a quiz question for you.
Okay.
I just noticed this. So when you hover your mouse over the view cube, obviously the stuff pops up on the view cube. Does anything pop up on the mouse? Yes or no?
Does anything pop up on the mouse? Like when you just hover your cursor over it?
Hover your cursor over it. When you're over the view cube, does anything happen
to my mouse? No.
To your little mouse pointer. It does. You have a little mini view cube that pops up on your mouse when you hover your mouse over the view cube. And I just noticed it for the first time after using this software for how long now?
Yeah, years and years.
Years and years and years. And it comes back to a basic point and a basic thing that we say all the time when you're learning CAD. Get basics from as many sources as you can, as often as you can, or at least semi-regularly. You will notice all kinds of things you never noticed before. Case in point, a freaking view cube pops up when I put my mouse over it. It's tiny. I'm like, what is that thing? It almost looked like a little circle. And then I zoomed in and I'm like, that's a mini view cube. So anyways.
I want to stick on that topic really quick. I have seen this happen, I think 3 or 4 times throughout all of our Discord eternity, through all of our thousands of members. I've seen this error happen, to just a handful of people, but it looks really bizarre, and it looks like you're doing everything right, but things are still wrong. And I just want to highlight something that a lot of people have never even looked at before, and that's the fact that you can reset a lot of views on the view cube to be customizable, and sometimes that gets screwed up. So I just want to show off something really quick in Fusion.
Fusion.
Fusion. Yes. This is my little geocache. We'll get to that in a minute. So you're saying, it is a little view cube on my cursor. That's hilarious.
It's the teeniest little thing I never noticed.
That's beautiful. So I think we all know when you move your cursor up to it, the home or the house icon pops up, so you can get an isometric view. That's pretty normal. But the other thing is when you move your cursor up to it, there's this little down arrow in the bottom right corner as well, which a lot of people don't notice. I didn't notice it for years. And when you click on it, you actually have a couple different options. Go home, which is the isometric. You can change your views between orthographic, which means totally linear. So if you look at a front view of a cube, it just looks like a square. Perspective, which plays around with more human-like views. But in the engineering worlds that we live in, it can be a bit of a pain. But one thing that I want you guys to notice is that you can change the home. So your house icon right there, that's set to the top front right corner. But if you want to, you can change it to where that is your, or something even more random like that. That's your house or your home view. So I can set that as my current view, and I can, say fixed distance, fixed view, all of that. And so when I change it and I click the house icon, oh, whoops. Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, whoops. Oh, God, but I'm so butchering this. Fixed distance, fits a view. Surely, yeah, there we go. So no matter how much I move it, that is always going to be the default view. So this is really handy if you're working on a project that has pretty standard, boring views on all parts of the design except for one view. Usually the underside is the classic example. And so if you very, very quickly always want to look at the underside of a model, then you can default it to this. And as soon as you want to undo that, you can just go ahead and reset your home view to be the normal isometric view. But you can also reset the front. You can do all kinds of random stuff. And what's really important is I have seen a couple people where their view, when they click the house icon or when they're just modeling normally, if you were to click front, it just looks like a cube. It's a dead-on view. But sometimes it looks totally twisted and canted back in really, really funky, bizarre shapes. And just resetting the home and resetting the front is a absolutely key thing to know about, but it's something that you'd never know if you saw it. So really, really, really good view from that.
Is there a default hotkey or a way to hotkey the front view or the top
not that
view?
I know.
Because I know in Onshape, when you create a new sketch on a new plane, you could press N for normal, and it will just give you that view head on. And I
was
find
gonna
it
say, I thought the
so
numbers
useful.
at the top were.
Oh, you might be right.
It's not the 1, 2, 3 is the different selections.
Oh no, that's the selection tools, right?
That's the selection tools.
Quick question about.
I was thinking Prusa Slicer.
Quick question about the stickiness of this. So, to be clear, if you change your view inside of this window in Fusion, this only affects this specific design. If I open a new tab, does it apply that same view?
The same rando funky view?
Does it give me the view? Is it sticky? And then the second question is there a way to change that setting globally? Because I think if we extrapolate out, and the reason I'm asking this question really is for the audience, is
no, it is only
it's sometimes confusing to know what applies to what instance of the program. Is this global? Is this local? And I think in general, like if I change my default units, I can change it in the browser and that changes it locally. Or I can change it in the preferences and that changes it globally every time I open the program.
No. If you set it as a default, so if you expand this and you change the units to set as default, then that is going to be a global change to every new design.
So there we go. So this is part of my point, is that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. And something else I like to tell people is worst case scenario, if you blow something out and you have no idea what's going on, you can open the preferences menu and click restore defaults. Now that will blow out any of the settings that you've had in there previously, but restoring defaults, that's what I'll do with my students sometimes. If I'm teaching and I have no idea what setting they've changed, but something is different, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to blow out your settings. If you want me to help you, I'm not going to spend an hour looking through your preferences drop-down menu to find the setting you mess with. So yeah, local versus global, bit tricky there. So you said with the view cube, it does it.
It's only local.
It's only in that instance on that window.
Which makes sense because because it's only on specific files that only one view is really important. So I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that I want to talk about really quick is we have a brand new book. We finally have the hardcover done. So this is going to be going up on our Amazon page in a little bit, probably in the next few days. We have lowered the price substantially because it was ridiculously high just because printing costs used to be stupid. But we're making essentially the same profit on this, but we get to price it much cheaper. So it's much clearer pictures, much nicer book, and I
higher
love this.
quality paper, hardcover. We got some requests. People who have kids, they're like, my kids will eat that paperback. They have lunch on Tuesdays, and part of their lunch is a paperback book. So,
yeah.
For those folks, and I think, what did we price it at? $75.
I think 75. Yeah.
Yeah, same profit for us. So you're not doing us any favors by ordering one over the other. Higher quality paper is surprisingly really nice. Yeah. It's
such a shame we can't do it for the paperback, or else we would make literally 2 cents.
We can't. We'd have to price it higher. We actually can't even do it. I tried. I tried pricing it in for the higher quality paper and like cutting pages and like, well, maybe if we cut 25 more pages, we could get this higher quality paper. And
it never works. Yeah.
No.
Such a shame. But yeah, so that is coming down the line. So also, we got a couple more reviews on our Amazon page. Again, thank you so much to everyone that put that in.
Call to action. If you have purchased our book, please take a photo of it in action in some way, maybe next to your computer. That would be awesome if you'd actually had a project open on Fusion, and just leave us a thoughtful review. If you have something to yell at us about, I would prefer to be yelled at in private. It's a little bit funky. It's a little bit funky, right? Because early on in this book cycle, if we got 1 or 2 1-star reviews, it can really tank us for a long time. So, please to our community, if you bought the book, do leave us a review.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it.
You have a giant geocache I want to talk about.
Well, thank you very much. But I also have one over here as well. So really quick, this is the original geocache. If I can cover my face, I don't even know how. I was trying to find a single. This is how big it is. It's about the size of this. It's about the size of an egg. About that. But I do love this project. It's one of our first projects that we ever came up with for this course, just because I love geocaching. I've done it for years and years and years. I did it in high school because I didn't have any friends, and so this is one of the first things that we wanted to design. So having a little thread and some nails.
I'm sorry, Jake. I got to interrupt you for just 1 second.
Yeah.
I just got a notification that the hardcover book is literally available this very minute.
Oh, it is. Oh, rad. Okay.
Yeah. So Kindle was like, "Hey, it's ready. It's up. It's live."
Awesome.
Like this very second. So that's crazy good time.
Lovely.
Anyways, back to you.
But I've always wanted to make one of these, a giant one. Essentially, there's this. If you haven't done any geocaching, one of the things that you can set is the size of the hide. So people hide them in literally screws, and they're called micros, and it goes all the way to gigantic ones. So people hide, huge containers in like cars or in planes that have crashed down in the middle of the forest in the middle of Oregon. Hyper specific example, but you know what I mean. And so you can change the size of it. So I've been wanting to make a gigantic version, literally 500 times or 500% bigger than the original one for so long. And I finally did it because we had Maker Faire this last weekend, which was exhausting, but it was so much fun. Loved it. I think Ethan pops on here from Maker Faire OC. I had a blast. Thank you so much for inviting us, dude. But in the designing of this, or in the designing of any of the shows that we do, for some reason, it always comes down to the last minutes. So I was literally redesigning this in CAD to take as little material as possible, just so it would print that half an hour faster, that 1 minute faster, this faster. And it was down to the minute. This top section literally finished as our event started. So I had to have my fiance drive it down and give it to her. So on our table, we only have this bottom screw. By the way, if you do plan on, I'm sure this is quite loud. If you do plan on making this thing,
that didn't help at all. By the way,
is so hard to hold. As you can see, I have dropped it and cracked it a couple times, but I've glued it back together. But this thing is solid, and it was actually full of a bunch of really interesting design techniques of how to work around the expansion in real life, and I did want to go over it a little bit. And some of them are pretty obvious. Like, oh, well, when things are very small, you obviously want it to have a decent thickness for the base. But if you expand that up 5 times as large, then it doesn't still need to be that thick. You can really lower it down. So even though, where is it? Even though this bottom footer, I think we call it, the geocache is that thick, I'm like, I want to have more of a cavity, more of an air on the inside. And so you can literally say, all right, well, I'm printing this at 0.28 layers thickness. Therefore, I want to have 4 or 5 layers on the bottom. So then I want to blow that up 500%, and that's the value that I put into into this file, or sorry, divide it by 5 to get it into this file. So it's incredibly thin in the CAD file that we'll go over. But obviously, when you blow it up, then it's much more reasonable. And for a model this big, 4 or 5 layers on the bottom is perfectly strong. That's completely fine. But we also had to blow up so many different things, especially all of the text on there. I wanted it to be a much more accurate embossing. It's way, way, way further out than it would ever need to be in real life. So it actually needed a huge amount of support material under all of the letters and all the crevasses. But I do want to go into there because I came across a couple different design consideration, or a bunch of different CAD choices that would have made it have less support or print faster, but it wouldn't have looked as good. So I did want to go over that rather quickly. Where's my present? There we go. So first off, with the CAD portion, if I just scan through the bottom section really quick, if you can see, I've actually made this bottom section way, way, way thinner, just like we said before. But also this cavity, we can cut out a huge amount. So on this piece, I can actually feel on the bottom inside a little bit more, just removing as much material as possible. These knurls on the outside, I thought wouldn't print amazing, just because it is, kind of holding over quite a large overhang angle, and it printed perfectly. It actually printed really, really, really well. And then obviously you can see the actual walls on the inside are much thinner. The actual thickness from this face to this to this outer face there is much, much thinner. Those walls got pushed out substantially. Some fillets added here and there just for strength, because even though this is such a large part, I knew I was going to drop it, and I did many a time. And so I just needed to bulk up that strength so much more. But the top section is where I did a little bit more work. On the underside, I kind of beefed out the angle a little bit so I wouldn't have to have any support material on the inside. But one thing that we didn't do, which it's going to be hard to see for you guys, yeah, very, very hard for you guys to see. But even though the inside angle is 65 degrees overhang, which is perfectly reasonable to print without any support, because it's a sharp internal corner on the inside of this cavity, it loves to just string on the inside, which is why in the next edition, we're going to be adding this little fillet just to ease into that overhang angle. I found that is pretty important for all of these pieces, as well as gutting out this cavity on the inside. Normally, we would have essentially just a straight wall from this inside face going all the way upwards. But again, we want to gut out as much material as possible. And so removing that was pretty key. Again, adding fillets everywhere. It is so important anytime you're designing anything that needs to be just that a little bit stronger. If I'm handing this over to a kid and they drop it accidentally, adding fillets can literally be a make or break. This was so much fun to print, but I could so see as soon as I hand it to a kid and they drop it and it shatters just because I didn't reinforce certain sections. Oh my gosh, I would have been gutted.
So,
yeah.
What's the total? Actually, so we had a suggestion from Dan that we should make this the weekly challenge, scaling it up and then trying to use no supports and minimal material.
Yeah.
So maybe this is what we talk through at the end of the pod. We'll try to specify that a little bit. We'll drop it in the Discord, and your challenge will be scale it up. minimize material and try not to use support material.
Because this was, it's so funny. Making small things gigantic is so ridiculously fun. I don't know what it is with humans that we love making tiny things gigantic or gigantic things tiny.
Yeah.
But it is such a giggle just to see how big this is. I know I need to keep it for different shows, but I don't want to. I do. I want to give it away. I want to kind of put it into the wild and use it as a geocache, but who knows? The other really big thing that was a bit of a pain, like I said, I wanted all of the text to be accurately scaled for the embossing for how far out. Normally, with any type of embossing on a vertical wall in 3D printing, you will have some people that say, "Oh, you should always make it an actual recessed text." They're liars. They don't know what they're talking about. You should always have it embossed outwards. It's only on horizontal faces that you should have it recessed in, because boundaries look much crisper than extruded text upwards. But regardless, on this text, on this size geocache, it's, I think, like 1 millimeter or half a millimeter. It's tiny. So all of the flat underside of the letters, there's no problem whatsoever in having that be drooping, because you'd never notice it. It's only pushed out a little bit. On this, it's like 5 mil. It is substantial. That would just look crappy, and you'd have to go in and cut off all the stringy bits. It would just be a nightmare. And so I was trying to think of all the different ways to actually cut in like a 60-degree angle on the
what did you
underside of those
use?
letters.
Yeah. I'm fascinated.
So I originally thought, oh yeah, I'm just going to go into draft, and I'll select the outer face of the top surface, and then that wall can be pulled in. Stupidly, I didn't realize that the actual pull direction has to be a flat surface. You cannot have a curved surface be your pull direction, because where is the perpendicular arrow pointing? So totally makes sense. My next one was to actually revolve cut a triangle that was touching on the underside of all of these letters, and have it only cut around 180 degrees, so it didn't interfere with our geocache logo on the underside. That technically worked, but on the CAD file, it looked really strange. Like, it looked really substantially weird. Like, the thickness of all these letters with that 60-degree angle, it looked bizarre. And then after going into it, I realized, oh yeah, well, the underside, obviously they're flat, but also, you know, the underside of that F and that underside of that F and the underside of that C. And it just, I was like, oh my God, then that C and then that G and that A and the E. And there's so many more undercut faces. And so in that scenario, it was, I either don't emboss the text out as much, then it doesn't look as comical, which isn't as fun, or I add in support material. And in the end, that I just added in a bunch of support material.
What about press pull?
Press pull what?
Try modify press pull and modify those faces that are undercut. So click modify press pull and then click that under surface.
So that would only pull it upwards or downwards.
You can't add a taper angle to that?
Good. No, but only from that profile. So you actually so you're only looking for it. Yeah. So all of these faces, they would only be slithering downwards or cutting it upwards vertically. Yeah. That's why I thought the draft angle was so genius. It's because, like, oh yeah, this outer face, and then this will suck in a little bit. It'll be great.
What about a fillet to some of those? Does that make it easier?
You could do a fillet, but then on some letters like this C, where the edge wraps all the way around.
Yeah.
Again, I wanted to preserve that kind of blocky, extruded shape.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some ways that I could have done it, but
Maybe you. I mean, yeah. Question for our audience, right? If you do end up doing this project this week, scaling it up 500% from the original, scale it up 500% from the original, and let us know how you deal with these undercut letters.
There's a bunch of really strange stuff, and then that, like, any tricks that I could think of for the text, that works just fine. But then for the icon on the back, it's like, well, this is an organic shape. That's a nightmare. There's no way that's gonna work. So it was just really, really, really funky in a bad way. Yeah. So tried my damnedest, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I do really like this. But now I'm looking at all of our other projects that I want to make gigantic.
And what's next?
Yeah, I don't know actually. What is next?
It's gotta be the Saturn V.
Well, the Saturn V rocket, I mean, you can see it over my shoulder. You can
I'm thinking like a house-sized Saturn V.
At 1-to-1 scale. Yeah.
Yeah, 1-to-1. That'd be crazy.
I was like, the Caribbean would be kind of lame. I have always wanted to make a tensegrity table that's as big and as strong that I can stand on it. I think that sounds awesome. So we'll see. There's lots and lots of projects to do. But yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. But that was a ton of fun. But while we're on topic, this is something that I did want to chat about for a little while. And I definitely want you guys' input on it. So this weekend I had a booth at Maker Faire OC. If you guys are ever in Orange County during this time of the year, go to it. It's a ton of fun. There's such good energy there. Like Maker Faire has got such a happy spot in my life because I remember sitting on very, very early YouTube watching Maker Faire walkthroughs in San Francisco, and I'm like, I'm never gonna go there. I can't go up there. I'm a child. And just watching it and be so enamored by it. It's so lovely and so happy. And then as soon as I go, oh good, I've got a little bit of money in my pocket, and then COVID closed it down for a couple of years, and that was such a shame. As soon as someone said it'll never come on again, I got really sad. I got really sad. And then it turned back up, and we got to do our speeches there, and we're invited back, and it's lovely. But Maker Faire is a gigantic brand. They've got chapters all over the world. The closest to us is Maker Faire OC.
Closest to you. Closest to me is Maker Faire Rockland, which we will also be at. And then, with one of our 9-year-old, I guess he's now 10. Our 10-year-old student got a booth there.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we're going to be hanging out with him, showing off his amazing stuff. And then after that is the biggest, or probably not the biggest, but the original, which is Maker Faire San Francisco.
Which is so much fun to go to. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. But what I wanted to chat about is I was not alone there. Because obviously Josh and I live very, very, very far apart from each other. I brought my brother-in-law just to help out my booth. So I was like, yeah, here's the business, here's how it works, here's all the class that we offer, here's what Maker Faire is, here's the vibe. It's really fun. You'll have a blast. So he's into cosplay, but he's never made anything. He's never done any woodworking or any 3D printing. Never. I don't think he's ever seen my workshop. No, that's not true. I taught him how to make one weld, and he was very scared because most people are scared of welding. I get it. And the entire day he was just interacting with makers and people in our community. And I mean in all of our community, not just Josh and I. And just seeing him for 2 days straight, going like, oh my god, oh, this is so weird, and meeting all these bizarre characters was such a blast. So going there was a huge BattleBots arena in the back that was so loud and so fantastic. So many smashes going on. It was lovely. There was the whole pits in the middle where people are coming back and trying to fix and drill and mill and 3D print parts, and that was chaotic and beautiful. And then there was a bunch of what is essentially first robotics going on in the corner. Kids making automated machines to pick up and put things down and organize and this and that. And it was such good energy, and there's so many people going on. And this is my first time coming to Maker Faire OC, and it was one of the things that really kind of stood out to me, because I think most people, when they think of makers or tinkerers or hobbyists, is they just think of like the old man character. And there were certainly old men characters there, which I'd still love. I feel like an old man a lot of the time. But there was so many different types of people there that it made me like happy for humanity. Like the amount of high schoolers and middle schoolers and like kids, oh yeah, I'm going into college, I'm getting an engineering degree, or I'm going into robotics, or I'm going into this and that, based off of my love for making robots and stuff. It was really, really beautiful. And there's people from every single walk of life, every single age demographic that we talked to. And it was really really nice. It felt really really good. But sitting there with my brother-in-law, he was he's just enamored at how many weird people there are.
Great.
That Yeah, which is so funny because
Ah,
if you've ever gone to Maker Faire and you'll know the wacky and strange things that are walking around. And at first you go, "Oh my god, that's so weird. This is so awesome. How do you build it?" And then after not that much time, you get very desensitized to it.
mm,
And it's just weird. It's like Burning Man. I think there's a very heavy Venn diagram of that, where the strangeness that you just get used to very, very quickly. But if it's your first time there, you have no idea, and it's very hard to recalibrate if you have
it's
no idea of the Maker Faire life.
yeah, and it's just so different. I love Dale's conception. So Dale is the founder of Make and the whole Make movement. He coined the term maker. Actually, I believe it was
Mm,
like really him. If he didn't coin it, he popularized it. But uh, he calls it maker. He called Maker Fair. He calls it the fair with robots.
that's great.
And it's like, that's a good description, the fair with robots.
Yeah.
I think that's kinda how he says it, right? And it just yeah, to your point, it's one of the gateway drugs. We talk about I think you and we talk about how 3D printing is kind of the gateway drug to CAD, right? So you buy a 3D printer and then you realize you need to make your own stuff. And the question
Mhm.
is, what's the gateway drug to 3D printing? And in some cases, it's things like Maker Faire. It's people doing weird, wacky, interesting, novel, couldn't or don't necessarily want to reproduce it. And that energy is infectious. And then you go, I don't do that. Like I can do that. I'm no weirder or less weird than these people. Why don't I do this? So what I hope is that it inspires Corey to make some stuff. That's
Yeah,
what I hope.
yeah. I really wanted to. There's two things that kind of two stories that I'll tell very very quickly that kind of show off the dichotomy of the old guy at Maker Faire, which is an amazing character. There's obviously young people that are getting into robotics and making stuff. That's always been there, and that's always beautiful. But they're just that a lot of time they're just nerdy kids that are getting into making stuff, and it's awesome. But there's not a lot of weirdness to them, and I use weird in the best way possible. And then there's the kind of dad crowd that bring around their kid, and that's really beautiful and that's really fun, lovely. And then there's the old dude, the kind of Grateful Dead character that's walking around making stuff. And I love that guy so
I
much.
also do. I
And
also do.
I've got two different stories for you. So we open up the booth 10 p.m. and the first guy that rolls up to us is kind of an old guy. And 3D printing, he's like, I think he's probably 70 or so. By the way, most of the old guy characters, they are all about I'm always still learning, which is
Yep.
the best attitude on the planet.
Hmm.
I hope I'm like 90 and like,
You
oh, I
will be.
just got a plasma arc welder. This and that.
You will be.
Yeah.
You will be.
I love that attitude. And he walks up and he goes, "Oh, I got a 3D printer not long ago, and I do a lot of model painting." And he goes, "Okay, it's not my scene, but okay, that's cool." And then he just kind of goes into what model making was like in the 70s. And
Mm.
and as soon as he says that, I'm thinking about all the chemistry and all the this and that and how just bizarre it was back in the day. And my brother-in-law is like, "Oh, what was it like?" Because he's into D&D. So he's like, he's like an arm's length away from model making. And he goes, "Oh yeah, back in the day, we used to use real silver dust that you couldn't breathe, or else you get lung cancer." And he goes, "Oh yeah, all the glues. This was before you had to have ID, so we all used to huff it every once in a while in the parking lot of my high school."
Oh my
And
goodness.
he was just talking for like 10 minutes. "Oh yeah, then we used to use the model glue to make this kind of drug, and he used to get high in this way." And
And you're
just
like, "That
it's
explains it, actually.
yeah.
That
And
explains
I'm
this
like, "That's the
interaction.
70s right there."
That's
And
it."
and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to have really good ideas about computers and early software and early hardware after sniffing painting." It's oh
Uh,
my god. Just that, and Corey was just like, what the hell?
What?
This was the first guy we ran into,
That's great.
and I'm like, you're gonna meet some really amazing weird guys, and it's yeah, it was so fun. It was so bizarre. Um, and then the rest of the day was going on, super fun, walking around, seeing some R2D2s driving around, which is beautiful. Seeing this, seeing that, a lot of cosplay, a lot of different projects, amazing. And then walks up this guy, and he's it's really hard to describe. It is a cosplay technique to make dragon scales, where essentially imagine a bunch of kind of small spiky claws that are kind of arranged, kind of a hexagon pattern into like a large grid. And you basically print the first layer, so a bunch of hexagons right next to each other, and then you pause it, magnet down like a layer of mesh, like screen door mesh, and then you keep on printing. And then when you take everything off, it is super duper flexible. And all of these kind of dragon scales, they all kind of it works a little bit like chainmail. I think that's a good way to think about it. And it looks awesome. And they kind of tink 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 like jingle with each other, and it sounds awesome. And he brought a bunch of different types, some different size, different flexibility. Oh, this one I use for gloves. This one's kind of for like shoulder armor. All different transparencies, the dichromatic colors, and I've got a bunch of pictures of him, and he was just going like, "Oh my god, this is so rad!" Like he's done cosplaying quotes, nothing of a build, but I think that might be his
That
drug.
might get him.
So
I've
I mean,
seen those print on mesh. I think it's so incredible looking,
it's awesome.
and I definitely want to try it.
Yeah,
And it's
I
just my brain goes, oh, there's. I actually I want to talk about the other thing that I really want to like in the CAD world. We're parametric CAD, we're Fusion, we're making things with
mhm.
printers and CNCs, but there's a whole separate world of clothing design.
Mm,
And they have CAD clothing design, and they also have it's starting to become more popular to integrate, obviously for this reason, and many like it, but integrate some 3D printing into this clothing design. And I'm just like completely enamored with this movement because it also taps into a separate audience.
yeah,
If you're into clothing and fashion, you're not necessarily into 3D printing, and I love it when worlds collide like that. So, yeah, there's Clo 3D, CLO 3D. Have you
mhm.
ever seen this website?
Yeah. Ed showed me. Yeah,
Oh, it just you look at it and you go, I want to integrate some of this in there. So yes, I'm all about that clothing design. I would love to make some of this. I would love to print on that mesh. Let's do it. Let's do
yeah.
it.
Problem is I there's nothing about cosplay that kind of pulls me in, which is bizarre because I love building movie props. But actually walking around, oh, I am the character. I've got all this and that. Does nothing for me at all.
Well,
But yeah,
have you done it yet?
I've never done it, but I've never
Hmm.
wanted to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
d-
maybe.
I don't know.
There's
It's
hope.
not for me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at this Maker Fair, it was such a nice, just random display of people making cool stuff. And it was so lovely. But it was so many different characters that you go, you are exactly like I expected. And then chatting with other people, and I'm like, oh my god, you're actually way cooler than I thought. Para example, at every Maker Fair, I feel like it's written in law. There has to be a guy driving around an R2D2, which I adore. And the guy that I chatted to, I was like, oh, I've been building mine for years, but I don't have access to a machine shop anymore, yada, yada, yada. And he goes, oh, like, is the inside, are you making it out of wood, plastic, aluminum? What are you making the frame out of? And he goes, wood. Like, oh, how long did it take you to build it? 6 years. Oh,
Oh.
what's the what are all the pieces made out of? And he goes, plastic and metal. I'm like, I am exhausted from lifting this conversation. Oh my god, dude. I'm like, you are driving the coolest robot character of all fiction, and oh my god, that was so exhausting to chat to this guy. And I'm like, if I was driving around an RCD2 and kids were just being mind blown, and he had all of the motors and he made all the sound effects, and it was beautiful. he was so stiff as a board. I feel like I would totally dress up. If I was driving around RTDC, I think I'd probably do cosplay. I think that's what I was doing. But it was wonderful. And then I got to meet, by the by, if you've never been to any type of these Maker Fairs or anything like this, I highly recommend going, because sometimes you get to meet rad YouTubers. So I got to hang out with for 2 seconds, but I got to meet Ali Spoldo, who is this really awesome artist who makes bizarre rando creations. While you're on YouTube, if you want to look up 12-foot tall disco skeleton, it is, her entire YouTube page is just ludicrous, insane art projects like that are so funny. She, like, those 12-foot tall Home Depot skeletons, she covered the entire thing in, I think, like 60,000 little tiny mirrors and made a skeleton disco ball. She felted a piano. She made a Chia Pet toilet. It is just a litany of just rad projects. I cannot recommend her channel enough. She's hysterical. Yeah, I love that stuff. But it was,
Love it.
yeah, it was a blast. Again, if you've never been to a Maker Fair, do it. It is so much fun. So much fun.
Well, Jake, shall we talk about the challenge? I'm writing the challenge up right now, and I think that might be the pod. What do you think about that?
Might be the pod as well.
Okay,
yeah.
So this week's challenge: scale up the geocache hide project 500%. The goal is to reduce the material usage.
Really quick, it was actually, I believe, 430%.
We'll call it. Because then it won't fit on the.
Yeah, because then the support material doesn't work.
Okay, so the goal is going to be. Oh, look at that! Ethan popped in.
Hey.
Ethan is Maker Faire OC. I don't understand how he has time to even pop in here, given his insane schedule. But really nice to see you, Ethan. So this week's challenge: scale up the geocache hide project 430%. The goal is to reduce material usage while still making it 3D printable, and also eliminate the need for support material. And there are some funky challenges. There are some funky challenges. What is the total height of the project?
Oh, I actually don't know. It's about a foot. Nope, that's a lie. It's about 10 inches. Yeah, this thing
is height is about 10 inches.
It's a beast. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it should be exactly the same size and scale as the original project. Good luck.
About the same size and scale.
Yeah.
All right. This has been.
Tell one last story. No. Can I tell one last story?
Yes, you can.
This is just sheer embarrassment. As we were setting up the first day, so we always bring a cooler full of drinks, just so anyone that pops by, here's some water, here's some Gatorade, here's some Dr. Pepper. Obviously for free, we just kind of give it away because they're usually on pretty hot scales. Last time we did this event, I brought a cooler and I opened up the little plug, sort of the ice flow out. Oh, all the water. And as soon as we started the event, like an hour in, we are right behind what's called the black room, where they've curtained off a whole area, and it's like, oh, do you have LED and light projects that are really rad and groovy, kind of psychedelic? You're in the black room, so it's super bright and super intense. A guy pops his head around the corner and goes, "Hey man, do you know there's water leaking all the way under your booth into?" And he goes, "Oh, hey Jake, hey man, there's water everywhere leaking from your booth." I was like, wow. I had left the cap open and there was water flooding into everyone's electronics. Thankfully, nothing broke. We got it in time. But oh my god, I felt like such a bastard. I was just on my hands and knees with paper towels. People were trying to scrounge from anywhere, trying to clean up. That was a bloody nightmare. Oh my god, I felt so bad. That was awful, so awful. But yeah, I learned my lesson, and next Maker Faire will be much better, much less
no
wet.
doubt.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been the CADclass podcast. Once again, I'm Josh.
I'm Jake.
And we will see you next week.
See you guys.